In the Arizona desert, just outside Tucson, there is a place where warplanes go to die. Row after row of them. Fighters, bombers, tankers, cargo giants. More than 4,000 aircraft lined up in the sand, stretching farther than the eye can see. Billions of dollars of military hardware, sitting silent under the desert sun, paint fading, engines cold. It looks like the largest graveyard on Earth. A place where the machines that once ruled the sky are left to rot and be forgotten. That's what it looks like. The truth is almost the opposite. Because these aircraft aren't rotting, they're not forgotten, and a lot of them aren't even dead. This isn't a graveyard, it's a bank. One of the most valuable and most misunderstood in the entire US military. And some of the aircraft parked here will fly again.
Start with the obvious question. Why here? Why haul thousands of aircraft into the middle of a desert? The answer is the desert itself. This spot, Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, sits on high, dry ground about 2,500 feet up. The humidity hovers around 10 to 20%. It rains only about 11 inches a year, and that combination is almost magic for metal. With so little moisture in the air, the aircraft barely rust. A jet that would corrode into junk in a wet climate can sit here for decades and stay sound. Then there's the ground. The soil is hard, alkaline caliche, so firm that you can park a 100-ton bomber on bare earth and it won't sink. You don't even need to pave it. Crews tow aircraft across the open desert like it's a runway. So this isn't a dump where planes were abandoned because nobody knew what else to do with them. It was chosen deliberately as the best natural preservation environment in the country. Think of it less as a graveyard and more as a giant open-air refrigerator for aircraft. A place designed to keep them, not to destroy them. And once you understand that it's about keeping them, the next question becomes obvious. Keeping them for what?
Not every aircraft here has the same future. When a plane arrives at the boneyard, it gets sorted into one of 4 fates, and understanding these 4 is the key to the whole place. The first fate: preservation for return to service. These aircraft are carefully sealed, every opening sprayed shut, engines and cockpits protected, so they can be woken up and flown again if the military ever needs them. They're not dead, they're asleep. The second fate: parts. Many aircraft are kept as a source of spare components, a living supply of parts for the jets still flying out in the world. When an active aircraft needs a rare part that's no longer made, the boneyard is where it comes from. The third fate: targets. Some old fighters, like retired F-16s and F-4s, get converted into full-size remote-controlled drones, flown pilotless to be shot at in weapons tests. A second career as a target.
And the fourth final fate: the scrapper. When an airframe has given all it can, what's left is shredded and melted down into ingots of raw metal. That's the end of the line. But for most aircraft here, it comes years, sometimes decades after they arrive. 4 fates. Only one of them is truly death. And that tells you what this place really is.
Here's the number that reframes everything. Add up the original purchase price of all the aircraft parked in this desert, and you get a figure north of $34 billion. $34 billion. That's not a junkyard, that's an asset, and the military treats it like one. They call this place the National Air Power Reservoir, a reservoir you draw from, because that's exactly what happens. Units all over the world, flying aircraft that are still in service, need parts. And often the cheapest, fastest place to get them is right here. A technician pulls a component off a stored jet in Arizona, ships it out, and keeps an active aircraft flying somewhere across the planet. The scale of this is staggering. In a single recent year, the boneyard reclaimed nearly 7,000 aircraft parts. And by doing that instead of buying new, it saved taxpayers more than $350 million in 1 year. From what looks like a field of dead airplanes.
So when you look at those silent rows, you're not looking at waste. You're looking at a warehouse, the largest aviation spare parts store in the world. where the shells happen to be entire aircraft. But a parts bank still costs money to run, which raises the real question. Wouldn't it be cheaper to just destroy them all and be done with it?
It's a fair question. Storing 4,000 aircraft, employing hundreds of people, doing constant preservation work, none of that is free. So why not scrap them immediately and save the trouble? Because of what these aircraft are worth the moment you need them. A single modern military jet can cost tens, even hundreds of millions of dollars to build new. A single engine can run into the millions. Building anything from scratch takes years. Now compare that to storage. Parking a jet in a dry desert and keeping it sealed costs a tiny fraction of that, a rounding error next to the price of a new aircraft. So the math is brutally simple. As long as a stored aircraft might one day give up a part worth millions or be needed back in the air, keeping it is far cheaper than losing it. Destroying an aircraft is a decision you can never take back. The moment it's melted into ingots, its parts are gone, its potential is gone. Storage keeps every option open, for pennies on the dollar. This is the quiet genius of the boneyard. It's an insurance policy. You pay a small premium every year to keep thousands of aircraft alive on paper, so that when a war, a shortage, or a surprise demand hits, you can reach into the desert and pull out exactly what you need.
Let's put the economics on screen, because this is the heart of it. On one side, the cost to keep a single aircraft in the desert for a year, preservation, a share of the staff, the land, a small, almost trivial number. On the other side, what that stored aircraft protects against. The price of a single rare spare part, often in the millions. The price of building a brand new aircraft, tens to hundreds of millions, and years of waiting. And the value of simply having aircraft you can reactivate in a crisis, when there's no time to build anything at all. Stack those against each other, and the logic is overwhelming. The cost of storage is a sliver. The cost of not having these aircraft, of having scrapped them the moment they retired, could be billions, paid at the worst possible time. That's why, in a single year, this one facility saved more than $300 million just in reclaimed parts. The boneyard doesn't cost the military money. Over time, it makes money by refusing to throw away things that still have value. It's the same lesson that runs through so much of military hardware. The expensive mistake isn't keeping something. It's destroying something you'll wish you still had. And now the part that proves it. Because some of these aircraft don't just donate parts, they come back to life. In 2015, the Air Force did something almost unheard of. They walked into the boneyard, up to a B-52 bomber that had been sitting sealed in the desert for 7 years, and they woke it up. Its name, fittingly, was Ghost Rider. Crews stripped away the preservation seals, went through the aircraft system by system, replaced what needed replacing, and put thousands of hours of work into it. And then a bomber that had been declared surplus, parked in a field, presumed finished, started its engines, and flew out of the desert under its own power back to active service. It wasn't a one-time miracle. A second B-52, nicknamed Wise Guy, was brought back the same way and returned to the fleet in 2021. Aircraft that the world had written off resurrected, because the desert had kept them intact enough to make it possible. Think about what that means. In a wetter climate, those bombers would have corroded into scrap long ago. Here, in the dry Arizona air, they slept, for years, perfectly preserved, waiting. And when the Air Force needed more bombers, and building new ones would have taken a decade, they didn't build. They reached into the desert and pulled two back from the dead. That is not what graveyards do. Graveyards keep the dead. This place keeps them ready. Here's why this matters more now than it used to. For years, the U.S. has been retiring aircraft faster than it builds new ones. The active fleet is slowly shrinking. More and more jets are making that final flight into the Arizona desert. You might think that makes the boneyard a symbol of decline, a growing pile of what used to be. But it's the opposite. As the active fleet gets smaller and older, the reservoir in the desert becomes more precious, not less. It's the buffer. It's the margin. It's the thing that lets a shrinking force still surge back if it has to. Pulling parts, pulling airframes, even pulling whole bombers back into the sky. Every aircraft that lands in that desert isn't leaving the story. It's joining the reserve. Its value doesn't drop to zero the day it retires. It converts into potential, banked in the sand, waiting for the day it's needed. The boneyard, in other words, isn't where American air power goes to end. Increasingly, it's part of how American air power survives.
So, why does the United States park more than 4,000 warplanes in the desert instead of destroying them? Because destroying them would be the real waste. In that dry Arizona air, an aircraft doesn't rot. It waits. It gives up its parts to keep others flying. It becomes a target so newer jets can be tested. And sometimes, against every expectation, it starts its engines and flies again. What looks like the largest graveyard on Earth is actually the largest savings account in military aviation. $34 billion of hardware kept alive on purpose because the desert offers something no other place can: the power to wait without decay. So the next time you see those endless rows of silent aircraft in the sand, don't think of a graveyard. Think of a reservoir, a parts bank, a sleeping fleet. The desert doesn't bury these warplanes, it keeps them, ready for the day the sky needs them again.